Hi, it's Anne. Thanks for stopping by. So you know how in fashion there is the iconic look called the little black dress, the LBD, and it's we've seen it all our lives. It comes in lots of different flavors. This is one from, I think it's a Smithsonian exhibit. It's a basic black dress. You can dress it up, you can dress it down. Sorry, there's a shine there. Don't worry, I'm not going all fashion forward on you here, but I was thinking about this concept of the little black dress, the LBD, that was, something all women were supposed to have. I guess I've had black dresses in my wardrobe before. I currently do not, but then Portland, Oregon is not a high fashion a community, as you can tell by my flannel shirt I frequently wear. How does the concept of a staple that you can have in your stash, in your wardrobe or in your stash, and then transform it into something for lots and lots of different purposes, lots of different looks out of that one basic foundation? How does that translate into junk journal world? Well, this is what we're going to talk about today. And it's not the LBD, but it's the LBB, the Little Brown Book. I have been making a lot of these lately, and they're very simple journal covers made, you guessed it, out of file folders, packing paper, and book page. And you can make them exactly the same, just cut them different sizes, have them in your stash, and when you need to make something quickly, you have a fabulous basis there, a foundation that can become any different kind of journal. We're going to go through making one, and I'm going to show you just how easy it is. But in case you think that this looks a little too basic for you, I'm going to show you a couple of examples of how I took little journal covers that I cut out of file folders covered in this way. And look at this cute journal cover. It's not stuffed yet, but isn't that a pretty fall-themed journal? I can put some kind of a topper there using the very, very same basic foundation. I made this little notebook. Again, doesn't have insides yet, but you can see there's that brown backing paper. With this one, I stenciled on it, did a little painting, a little bit of stamping, and by having a whole stack of these LBBs sitting around, I was able to very quickly come up with variations. And I'm sure I will run across a couple more on my desk. Oh, here's one more. Here's one just with a napkin. This is the very same foundation, this brown packing paper on a file folder with dictionary page inside, and I just covered this with a napkin and put a little book plate on it. And once that's stuffed, isn't that going to be cute? But it was so easy. I mean, it literally took moments to create the cover once I had that little brown book base. So that's just what we're going to do. It's super simple, but I think if you do it, I think you're going to be really glad that you had these in your stash. So we're going to take our old friend, the file folder. I've kind of been doing a lot of file folder things lately. I made a video on backing tags made out of file folders, and then all you have to do is add the front. But this time it's going to be journal covers, and I'm going to do the entire file folder because the portions that we cut off are going to be things that we can use for pockets or tags in our journal. So we're going to take a look at that too. Now, you also know I have been really trying to be mindful of how I used my glue lately. This is going to be a glue forward kind of project, and so there's some projects you can get by with just a little glue. There's others where you have to use a lot of glue. This is one where glue is really a critical success factor in creating these covers. But I found what I think might be a good alternative for me on glue, so I'm going to talk about that as we get started. I like to do the inside of these first and use some sort of a thin book page. That's why always the dictionary pages come in very handy. But I also have this Shakespeare book that has very thin paper, and that's what I want for this purpose. So I'm going to going to be using the Shakespeare here. Brush up your Shakespeare. You may notice that I'm using a different kind of glue. This is the Darice brand with the aqua cap. Make sure I'm holding that carefully for you. And it's the 40-gram stick. I've been for some time using the Yoo-Hoo, which comes out of Germany. But I'd been, you know, we all, you know, nobody knows what's going on, you know, with us, with our economy and these tariffs. And I have many, many opinions on those that I'm not going to get into now. But I just had been worried, as I think many of you have been, about supply. You know, I worried about, you know, the cost. I thought, oh, the cost of everything is going to be going way, way up. And that's one reason I was being very, you know, and still am, being very stingy with my use of glue and looking for other ways of holding things together. I'm using my glue and my glue sticks, but I was trying to use them a lot less, and I still am taking that mindful approach. But I'm a little less worried about it right now because I found this Darice glue. Now, Darice is a really well-known craft brand, but I had only known it, to be perfectly honest, I'd only known Darice as a maker of, what are they? Embossing folders, you know, that you put into your embossing machine. And I was watching, as I always do, my friend Brian Medlock, who's a wonderful collage artist. And Brian uses the Darice brand. And I thought, well, if it's good enough for Brian, I'm going to give it a try. I'm pretty picky about my glues, and I don't want to completely cheap out and use a glue stick that's not going to hold. But I thought Brian wouldn't do that either. He's just a really good creative guy, and I thought he's not going to use a glue that's, you know, like dollar store glue. I've tried the Jot glue from Dollar Tree. Oh, not worth $1 or $1.25. You know, it's just, I think I have a little one here. This is the Jot plain. I should toss it. In fact, you know what? I'm going to. There we go. Definitely not worth it. You know, so I you know, it's important to get something, you know, a glue that we feel we can trust. But I thought, well, I'm going to give the Darice glue Darice glue stick brand a try. And you know, I have been pretty happy with it. The consistency, it's pretty sticky. It's a little bit harder than the Yoo-Hoo. I always used to use Scotch Creates, and then I couldn't find that anywhere. So I've been using the Yoo-Hoo for a long time, and I kind of was doing some pre-tariff doom shopping a couple of months ago, and I stacked up a little bit on the Yoo-Hoo. But then I got into where I wasn't wanting to use Amazon at all. I still use Amazon a little bit, but I've cut way, way back. Tear this off. I think that's going to come right around that curve. You know, I'll probably have to coax it a little bit with my X-Acto knife here. Anyway, so I was really stressing over the whole glue situation, and I was wanting to not spend so much money, and I was wanting not to support Amazon, and, you know, but there's still some things you kind of, you know, just for convenience and, you know, access to the things that, you know, we use in our lives. You know, there's still a little bit of Amazoning that I do, but I do a lot less than I used to. Anyway, I did stock up a little bit on the glue. And then I saw Brian's Darice, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to kind of give that a try. That seems like it's something worth trying, and I have been very happy with it. I really have. Price wise, it's much more affordable than the Yoo-Hoo. So in fact, I wrote it down. Do you want to see? This is these are prices as of today, as I'm recording these. And as we know, those prices can change, in a heartbeat. But as of this filming today, the Yoo-Hoo glue, and I get it in batches, but it breaks down to about $3.70 per 40-gram stick. And I do like this size of a stick. It fits well in my hand. I like the size of the aperture there, and it's just, it's a good size for me because obviously this is a glue intensive art that we do. The Darice, if you get it in a 12 pack, comes out to $1.58 for a 40-gram stick. So, pretty close to half price there. And I just, it just makes me, actually less than half price. And I feel a little bit better about actually using it as long as it is a glue that works. I don't typically use the Elmer's Disappearing Purple. I know a lot of people do, but that kind of falls a little bit in the middle. It comes out as of today about $3.14 a stick. That was like buying them individually, though. If you buy them in bulk, you might be able to get a better price. Darice, I know you can get from the Darice website, and it's $2.49 a stick from the Darice website, if that's a better option for you, bypassing Amazon. So anyway, that's my little glue story for today. But this, we have our supplies that we need for doing this this kind of artwork, don't we? So anyway, we want to keep ourselves in glue as much as we can. There we go. I think I'm only going to do part of this on camera because I don't want to just bore you silly doing this sort of large collaging, but you get the idea. Here, let me cut this off and then I'll do a little bit of the outside to show you my technique for doing that. And then I'll do the rest off camera, and then we'll talk about how we can cut it and really harvest this entire folder into useful material to make our little brown books. Okay, here's this one with our thin Shakespeare page. I'm going to do the other side just like that. Now, the outside, I'm going to use this thin packing paper, and we're all familiar with that. Speaking of buying things online, right? We have lots of this around, and I'm going to kind of just smooth it out. And maybe I want a bigger piece here. Yeah, I think I'll use this. And just going to kind of tear this down, and I'm going to, just to conserve as much of the paper as I can, I'm cutting it down to a straight edge, and I'm going to put that straight edge on the outer edge of this file folder. And there's going to be a little bit of waste underneath here where that dip goes in, but I'm going to be okay with that. I would typically, if I was putting this on top of another piece, I would ink this because you don't always have to ink these, but I kind of like, you kind of saw what I did with this, I kind of liked this little, craggy little seam going there. You don't have to do it with the, with the seams at all. You can probably get enough, blank paper there to not have to patch anything, but I really like the patchiness of it. I think I want this piece to go here because I really like this tear. However, let me see if I can put a smaller patch here so that I can have this exposed. I think I'll do that. I'm going to cut another piece here. I'm gonna tear. Well, didn't tear very nicely, did it? but that is perfectly okay for this project. I'm letting the paper fly willy-nilly like it's giant confetti. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this piece down first, and then that jaggedy piece here, I'm going to have that as a patch. Pull this over a little bit more this way. And what I really kind of want to be doing is I want my piece here to go over this fold. I don't, on the inside, I brought the paper right up to the fold. I didn't include the fold. With the brown paper on the outside, I want to go over the fold. So I actually think I'm going to put it, you know, well and truly in the middle there, and then we'll just patch everything else that we have to cover this space up here. I'm going to, whoops, I reached automatically for my Yoo-hoo that was there for demonstration purposes. I still have, obviously, a lot of Yoo-hoo, and I will be using it, but I kind of want to be putting the Darice through its paces with this particular project, because I just want to see how it performs. So far, so good with it. It's pretty hard. You know, sometimes glue stick, it's really, really gummy, and so you know, you go to apply heavily, and you can just feel it just sort of, you know, collapse in there. But this one seems like it's firm, but it is transferring. It is applying, so it's not like the Jot glue that is just really hard and doesn't get onto your surface hardly at all. What did I do with my glue spreader? There it is, my old hotel key. There we go. So yeah, I've got some really good adherence there, even on that edge. Didn't bring it over here exactly far enough. So yeah, and it spreads down really nice. I'm not willing yet to make it the sole glue in my glue arsenal, but it certainly is, it's having a promising debut. I will say that. All right, I want to put a little patch up here. And it's fine to have like lots of little scraps because you will probably use these. And you'll probably go have a couple of thicknesses here and there, and that is okay as well. It's all going to be covered up. Now this is the edge that's going to be exposed there. So I'm going to grab my blending tool, and I've been using Scorched Timber because it's really dark, and I kind of like that strong contrast. It does give sort of a burned look, which is something kind of just sort of different. The other ink I want to try, and several of you have mentioned this, is Ground Espresso, the Distress Ink Color Ground Espresso, or Espresso, I guess it is. And I don't have that one. I don't have that many different Distress Ink colors. I still am one who uses the Distress Ink a little bit more than the Distress Oxide. I have some Distress Oxides and I use them for mixed media projects, but for inking edges, I really like the consistency of the bog standard Distress Ink. So there, we've got that piece there. You can see here's where that center fold is, and I just didn't want a join or a patch happening right around that fold. All right, let's just do a little inking down this jaggedy edge. And it's going to look just sort of organic there. But yeah, these basic journal covers, you know, these are great if you're planning some sort of a mass make. I mean, I know we're barely at the first day of summer here, which, you know, again, here I am wearing a flannel shirt when we're just days away from the first day of summer. But we're looking ahead. I think we're looking ahead to the holidays, aren't we? I know I am. You know, I'm going to be doing a couple of craft fairs. You know, I'd love to give journals for gifts. I have several gift journals coming up. And a little bit bigger space here to do my gluing. So it's just like we stock our pantry, you know, if we're looking ahead to holidays and, you know, maybe doing a lot of baking, you know, we get the big bags of the flour, we get the big bags of the sugar, we, you know, stock up on, you know, the sprinkles or whatever sorts of things that we like to use for our baking or anything that we make for holiday gifts or things we're selling or, you know, just things we want to have handy in our stash. You know, a lot of times at the holidays, you know, you get together with your friends, you know, you say to your girlfriends, let's get together for lunch. You know, your book club has a party, you know, you have your get together with your old work pals. Those sorts of things happen. And it's really nice to have a little nifty gifty in your stash that you can say, oh, you know, I'm meeting with Janice today. I wish I had something to take to her as just a little gift. Oh, wait, I do have that because you have made a little journal. And these are just the things that are really handy to have in your stash. So you can mass make those journals that can be very theme specific, or you can make them to be totally eclectic and diversified in their theme as well. Anyway, we're going to be getting to some of that, but here is how this part is coming together. We're going to have that fold there. I'm going to continue patching on the back side with my packing paper, and I'm going to finish the inside, and then we'll come back and see how we can turn it. We're going to have a ton of possibilities for how this can become almost any kind of journal that you want. So I'll see you in a moment. Okay, well, that was easily done. What I really want to point out again is how this packing paper just wraps so nicely and smoothly around that spine, because this is what's going to be the spine of our little journal cover. And, you know, you don't have any gaps. It just lays down really nicely. And anyway, this is the back. We patched it here and inked here, and I think we're all set to go. I put the rest of our Shakespeare pages inside here, and I might be out of frame a little bit. I'm going to try to stay in. I zoomed out a little bit. Okay, now we're going to cut it, and I think that I want to have a 6x9 journal, sort of the standard one, but I'm going to use another file folder and cut some different sizes. How did I do this before? I think I cut the depth first. So we're gonna go 9 because I want to have an uncut piece here, and I'll soon show you how why that makes a difference. So this will be 9. It's like I need my power tools here. There we go. And 6. Come in with the big guns. Well, not the big guns, the small mighty knife. Because got some extra thicknesses here. Probably would have been best to do that in single thickness, but I wanted you to see how it's easy to do. There we go. And here is this. All right, here's our little journal cover. We can use either side. Well, actually, we can't use either side for the cover because we are directional here on the inside. But this is exactly what I wanted to come up with. We can round the corners. From here, I can stitch around if I want to. I can put some paint down. Like I did with this one. You've seen me do a lot of mixed media like this lately, so, you know, I won't go through that again. I just kind of scraped some acrylic paint on there, did a little bit of mark making with a gold acrylic marker, did some stamping, and then put a thin layer of Mod Podge over the whole thing. Very, very easy way to decorate that. And I'll do the same for this, but I'm not going to do it right now because I don't know exactly what I'm going to use it for. I am confident enough that I will use this as a journal cover to go ahead and ink the edges so it looks nice and proper in my stash until I want to pull it out and add a signature, add some decorating, add some thematicness to the whole thing. But what are we going to do with these extra pieces? Well, these are great, could be great to use for pockets here on the inside. In fact, why don't we use this? Why don't we use this as a pocket right here? But what I'm going to do, let me grab a pencil. I'm going to cut this so it can become a pocket. But I'm not going to glue it in right now because however I decorate the outside, I might want to do something similar to the inside. So I'm just going to kind of clip them all together. Here is this. So these can all be clipped together. I could use another piece here for a pocket on this side. That might be nice. Could go like that so it could kind of step up. Or I could cut a piece here to use it as a belly band, or maybe inside. Maybe I might want the Shakespeare side showing. I can make a tag out of this. This, that's the outside of this journal, can become the writing space, and our Shakespeare can be part of the, can be the part that we're going to decorate. In fact, why don't I go ahead and do that right now? I don't know, why don't I? Let's cut that right here. So this can become a little journal card. Either, you know, I could put something else here and make that the writing space, but there's no reason that I wouldn't want to use this packing paper as the writing space and decorate this in some way that's consistent with whatever theme I'm using for the journal. So I'm just going to put these little pieces in here together. This could be, boy, I could make a couple of really cute, tiny little tuck-ins here, couldn't I? I'm going to go ahead. Normally I would probably wait on this, but just because I want you to see how easy it is to use the whole thing, I'm going to just prep these. And I could put a little stamp or something here. I could put a little bit of lace. I could put, make them a little bit of a tag. I'm just going to keep these little pieces together, and these are all pieces that can be part of this journal whenever I'm ready to do it. Let's do one more, and maybe we could cover it with a napkin. Shall we do that? Here is another one that I made recently, and this is a really big one, so I can get several out of this. I think these, what size was I making these? These little notebooks. And these are the ones that are really perfect for, showing up for coffee with your friend and giving her just a little nifty gift because it's her birthday or something like that. Let me find Oh, here we go. This one, I cut these 6 by 4.5. Yeah. This is a double thickness. It's so big that I think, yeah, I'm not going to be able to get it down to a single thickness here. I'm going to try to eat into it this way. Yeah, that's not going to go any further than that. I don't want to ask more of my tool than it's capable of giving me. That's not fair. So I will just use my trusty craft knife and aluminum ruler. Or, yes. You can get through great thicknesses with this. Okay, there's our 6-inch, and we can cut this up into lots of different things here. And what did I say? This was 4.5. And there's 4.5. And these pieces here, these we could cut up to be tags, to be anything, you know, to be pockets. We could make another journal out of this, creating a new spine, just putting a strip of fabric in between the two. And let me see if I have some over here that I can show you. I could take a little strip. Like this was my, okay, here's my piece that has the spine. And then here's a couple of my leftover pieces that I could join just by stitching a little piece of fabric on either side there. And we'll have a whole nother little notebook cover, little journal cover. There we go. Oh, isn't that cute? Did I make that the same? Yeah, I made that the same size. Yeah, that's cute. Let's cover this with napkin, just so you can, you know, again, have another idea of how you can transform these. Stenciling works great. I loved doing the stenciling on this one. Again, that's nice and flat and gives you a wonderful all-over design. But since we're using lots of glue today, let's just kind of do a little more with it and use a napkin, because I always use glue stick for my napkin projects. This looks nice and summery. Unlike my flannel shirt. Napkins, this is a napkin. I've already cut part of this apart. I'm going to remove the inner layers. This is one that has a couple of inner layers. Oh, didn't I? What happened to, oh, there it is. I just put a little piece of cellophane tape there and rip off that layer that we want removed. This is a piece that I toss away willy-nilly. Many people much more clever than I make use out of those, but that falls into the life's too short category for me. Let's bring our glue book back. And I'm just going to put down another layer of glue. I hope that glue, I hope that information was useful to you. You know, everybody, your use of crafting materials is very personal. So I'm not saying I would recommend that. I'm just telling you, you know, this is what the Darice I have added to my craft supplies for my thin papers. Of course, we all have various kinds of glue. We use our wet white glue, like art glitter glue, for mid-weight papers, and then our 3-in-1 glue, otherwise known as Fabri-Tac or Fabri-Fix, if we're going to be needing some extra strength or gluing fabric to any of our projects, fabric or lace, anything fibrous. But glue stick, I sure use a lot of that stuff. And even when I'm trying to use less, there's projects like this one that it just depends on the glue, you know. If I had no access to glue, as I was afraid was going to happen a few months ago, looks now may not happen, but if I had a craft room where I literally could not get glue stick, I wouldn't be doing a project like this. I would be adhering my stuff in some other way. But right now my supply seems to be okay. So fingers crossed on that. So I've again gone over that spine, and I'm going to come in and this is going to be the back. This is that kind of bumpety part of the napkin, but I'm okay with using that. I really am. I don't mind this looking like it's a napkin. I think when you make things like this to give to friends or to sell or to just share in some way, people are generally very interested in the fact that you're making stuff out of packing paper, out of, you know, old file folders, out of food, old food boxes. Did I get that second? There it is. Sometimes that middle layer, and not all napkins have a middle layer. A lot of the less expensive napkins have just 2 layers, like ones you get at the dollar store or something like that. There we go. Anyway, I find that people love receiving gifts like this, and they're particularly intrigued by the fact that they're made out of things that would otherwise be thrown away. You know, old book pages, a falling apart complete works of Shakespeare that I got free at the Friends of the Library bookstore. So this, you know, using some of those old file folders, it's just a great way to build up your stash for when you want to make a lot of projects, but you don't know how you want to decorate them yet. This I'm going to go ahead and let dry because the napkin is really, it's hard to trim when the glue is still wet and gummy. But you can see here how many, look, this is the piece from that ultra big journal that I haven't even cut into yet. You know, I could make another more regular size journal here and have some materials for pockets, for belly bands, for tags and journal cards, all out of this piece that I just pulled together right just as I showed you just now. So anyway, I hope that's interesting to you guys. I really appreciate the chance to share this with you and share with you some of my discoveries on Darice glue. I did not even realize that they made a glue, but it's welcome in my craft room now. So far, again, those edges are adhering really nicely, and this napkin is going to stay down nicely too, I know, because the first one I made did really well. Anyway, that's it for today, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.